I'm 32, and a few months back, I left my girlfriend, Emily, she's 27, in the city because I just couldn't handle how she kept breaking my trust. Here's the thing, my last 3 relationships? They all ended the same way, me finding out I'd been cheated on. It's wrecked me more than I care to admit. Emily and I had been together for about 8 months, and we'd planned this trip to a convention for weeks. Out of the blue, she comes to me, all excited, saying she met this new friend, some guy, who got us free tickets to the event. At first, I didn't think much of it. But things spiraled from there. One day, she casually admitted that she'd been flirting with him. By accident. Yeah, you read that right, accident. Then she asked me, "Do you think I should feel bad about it?" My gut was already uneasy, but I tried to keep calm. I asked her straight up, "Does this guy know you have a boyfriend?" Her response? No. It felt weird to mention it. Plus, I've learned that people are less likely to give you free stuff if they know you're in a relationship. That hit me like a punch in the gut. I told her, as calmly as I could, that this was crossing a line for me. I said it made me uncomfortable and that I wasn't asking for much. I just wanted her to be more mindful of how she acted and what she said to this guy. She knew my past, how being cheated on had shredded my mental health. She had even told me once that she cheated in a relationship when she was younger and in a bad place, but swore up and down that she wasn't that person anymore. At the time, I believed her, and I thought she was just being open with me now. Fast forward to the convention day. The moment we got there, she made a beeline for this guy. Let's call him Jake. For 90% of the day, she was glued to his side, whispering, giggling, little shoulder touches, the works. I felt like a ghost standing there, but I swallowed my feelings, figuring I'd bring it up later when we were alone. At one point, I reached out to hold her hand. That was our thing, you know? But she brushed me off, saying, "Not right now, I'm stressed." Then, 2 seconds later, she was back to laughing with Jake like nothing was wrong. When the day finally wound down, we got some time alone, and I couldn't hold it in anymore. I said, "Emily, I really don't like how I'm being treated here. You've spent all your time with this guy you barely know, and it feels like you're crossing boundaries that are really painful for me. I just want you to hear me out, take this seriously, and stop." Her response? "I'm not cheating on you." Then she added, "Why don't you try being friends with him too? He's a nice guy." And the kicker? "I think you're only upset because of what you've been through before." I stood my ground. "Emily, this isn't about my past. This is about right now, and how you're acting. It hurts me, and I'm asking you to take my feelings seriously." The next morning, just as the sun was coming up, I noticed Emily was already on her phone, typing away. I kept my eyes mostly shut, pretending to still be asleep, but I could see enough to know who she was messaging. She was texting Jake, pouring her heart out about how we'd had a fight. She said she felt stressed, worthless, and scared. Meanwhile, Jake was right there to lift her up, sending her sweet affirmations about how special she was and how much he liked her. I lay there, trying to keep my cool, but my stomach was in knots. It felt like I was watching a car crash in slow motion, and I couldn't take it anymore. "Good morning," I finally said, sitting up a bit. She turned away from me, angling her phone out of sight. Then, without missing a beat, she said she was just texting her coworkers. I shot her a look, and she immediately got defensive. "My back hurts," she said. "What, you think I'm trying to hide something just because I rolled over to get comfortable?" I stared her down and said plainly, "You were texting Jake." Her eyes widened, and she snapped back. "No, I wasn't. I told you, I was texting my coworkers." "You're just targeting me again." I couldn't believe it. My chest tightened as I sat up fully and stared blankly at the wall. "Why would you lie about that?" I said, my voice low and calm. "I saw you. I was watching you text him." Her face crumbled, and she broke down completely. "I'm sorry," she cried. "I'll never do it again. I just felt like you were always targeting me about him. He's just a friend, and I don't want you to think otherwise." We patched things up, for the moment, and headed back to the convention. But as soon as we got there, it was déjà vu. Emily made a beeline for Jake again and spent the day with him, laughing, chatting, and even buying him little trinkets. By the end of the day, I was done. I told her I was heading back to the hotel, and she said she was going out for drinks with Jake. Then she casually added, "You're welcome to come if you want. I might crash in his room later." That was it. I looked at her and said, "Nah, I'm good. Goodbye." And that goodbye? It was the last time I saw her. I went straight to the hotel, packed up my things, and drove several hours back home. Around 5 a.m., my phone started buzzing nonstop. Emily had just realized I was gone, and she was freaking out, saying I'd abandoned her. I stayed calm and told her, "Enjoy the rest of your trip. There's nothing left here for me. Your stuff is still in the hotel room I paid for." I also added that if she really needed a ride home, I'd come back, not as her boyfriend, but just to make sure she wasn't stranded. I reminded her Jake could probably take care of her anyway. She didn't take it well. She started crying, begging, and accusing me of leaving her with nowhere to go. I listened for a bit but didn't budge. I'd seen this story play out before, and I was done being the guy who stuck around despite being disrespected. Now, it's hard to put into words how I feel. Trusting people is tough. It's like I'm always bracing for the other shoe to drop, wondering if there's something going on behind my back that'll hurt me again. But even with those doubts, I feel like I did the right thing. Every friend I've talked to about this has told me the same, that I stood up for myself and shouldn't have put up with that kind of behavior. Still, I'd be lying if I said I didn't have moments where I questioned myself. Did I overreact? Was I being too sensitive? Is there something I could have done differently? I don't know, honestly. I've read a lot of stories like this over the years, and they've given me clarity during those long, hard months after being cheated on. My hope is that sharing mine can do the same for someone else out there. There are a few things I think I should clear up. This all went down a few months ago, but it was such a bizarre and painful experience that it stayed with me. Writing everything out and seeing how folks have responded has been strangely therapeutic. It's helped me process parts of it that I didn't even realize I was still holding on to. Since people have been asking for more details, I figured I'd share an update. After Emily realized I'd left, she stopped calling and texting for a few days. Instead, she stayed with Jake to finish the convention we'd planned together. When she finally reached out, she claimed she had begged her friends for money to pay for an Uber, which apparently drove her about 2 hours to get her car. I don't know if I even believe that story. It felt like another layer of nonsense. But that's what she told me. A few of our mutual friends, and some of hers, reached out to ask what the heck was going on. I didn't sugarcoat it. I laid out the whole story, answered any questions they had, and said, "You tell me, am I crazy, or was what she did completely out of line?" Every single one of them, 6 out of 6, was shocked and disappointed in her behavior. When she finally got back home, several days later, she begged me to talk. She wanted to know what had happened, why I left, and what went wrong. I didn't beat around the bush. I told her, "Emily, I don't trust you anymore. You've shown me that you can't be trusted, especially in an area that's already a raw wound for me because of my past. This isn't about giving you another chance or pleading with you to do better. I just can't be close to someone who thinks it's okay to treat their partner like that." Her response? She said she was going to do everything in her power to win me back. I cringed and said goodbye. But she wasn't done. Her next move was to ask me to send back her stuff. What stuff, you ask? Apparently, she wanted the birthday gifts she had given me. Yeah, you read that right. I considered for a moment that those gifts were the only ones I'd received that year, sighed, and told her I'd ship them back via FedEx. And let me tell you, I can't stand FedEx. It felt fitting, somehow, sending something to someone I had such a low opinion of through a service I dislike. Side note, she also offered to meet me in person to pick up her stuff. She made it super vague, mentioning she'd be visiting someone nearby, clearly fishing to see if I'd ask who it was. I didn't bite. I didn't care. You might wonder why I entertained any of this at that point. Well, the truth is, she knew where I lived, and I didn't put it past her to show up uninvited if she wanted to make a point. She was trash to me now, but I still wanted to protect my peace. So, I figured it was better to just send her anything she might try to use as an excuse to come argue. I didn't need a dramatic scene or endless debates. The last thing I heard from her was a Merry Christmas text, followed by some weak attempt at a joke to get me to respond. I ignored both. Let me tell you something, I can't stand cheaters. People sometimes say, "Wow, you have terrible luck." And maybe that's true. But honestly, it makes me wonder if this is just how most people are deep down. My faith in others was already shaky, but after this, it's practically non-existent. Oh, and to the folks messaging me to share cheating stories or asking if I'd sleep with their partner because they have some weird kink about being cheated on, bless your hearts. But I don't think you understand how I feel about this subject. To everyone else, thank you. Your kind words, your tough love, your honest opinions, they've all meant the world to me.